Maya had only planned a short walk that morning. She wanted silence and space away from the noise of town. The hills beyond the old road were quiet and rarely visited. People said nothing interesting was there anymore. That made the place feel safe to her. Maya enjoyed places where time seemed to slow down. She walked along a narrow trail with trees standing tall on both sides. Sunlight slipped through the leaves and moved across the ground. The air smelled clean and dry. Birds made soft sounds high above her. With every step she felt lighter, as if the worries she carried were slowly falling away. After walking for a long time, she noticed the path begin to fade. The ground ahead looked different. The trees opened into a flat area that felt strange. Maya slowed down and looked carefully. This space did not look natural. In the middle of the clearing sat an old fire pit made of stones. Ash filled the center, dark and cold. Around it were bent metal rods pushed into the ground. Torn fabric hung loosely from a low branch. Maya stopped walking. Her heart beat faster. Someone had camped here before. Not recently. The metal was covered in rust and the fabric looked weak and faded. Grass had grown around the fire pit, as if the place had been left alone for years. Maya felt uneasy. She had walked these hills before but had never seen this campsite. She stepped closer and looked around. A cracked cup lay near the stones. A small bag sat nearby with one strap broken. Leaves had gathered around it. Maya crouched and touched the bag. Dust rose into the air. The bag felt light and empty. It felt wrong. People usually packed their things when they left. This place looked abandoned in a hurry. Maya stood up slowly and scanned the area. The forest was quiet. No voices. No footsteps. Only the wind moving through branches. She checked her phone out of habit. There was no signal. That was not unusual here, but it made her feel alone. Maya slipped the phone back into her pocket and took a deep breath. She walked around the edge of the clearing. At one side, the ground suddenly dropped. Thick bushes hid most of it, but she could see a steep slope beyond them. The land fell sharply into a darker area below. Near the edge lay a single shoe. It was old and worn. Dirt covered the sides. Maya froze when she saw it. One shoe meant something was missing. People did not usually leave shoes behind. Her thoughts raced. She told herself it could be nothing. Maybe someone lost it long ago. Still, her chest felt tight. She stepped closer to the edge and carefully moved the bushes aside. The slope was steep and uneven. Roots and rocks stuck out of the ground. Leaves covered a narrow line running downward. It looked like something had slid or been pulled along that path. Maya swallowed hard. She should turn back. That was the smart choice. She could leave and tell someone in town. But another feeling grew stronger inside her. If someone had been hurt here, walking away felt wrong. She placed one foot forward and tested the ground. It was loose but dry. Holding onto a tree, she moved slowly along the edge to find a safer way down. Her hands shook as she grabbed branches for support. As she moved down, small stones rolled beneath her shoes and disappeared below. Her heart beat loudly in her ears. Halfway down, she noticed something caught on a branch. It was a piece of blue fabric. Maya stopped and reached for it. The fabric was torn cleanly. It looked like part of a jacket. The color was faded but still clear against the forest. She held it tightly, feeling a cold weight settle in her stomach. She continued down carefully. Every step felt risky. The air grew cooler as the trees closed in. When she finally reached the bottom, her legs felt weak. She leaned against a rock and took a moment to breathe. The valley below was narrow and quiet. Tall trees blocked most of the sunlight. Ferns covered the ground. A small stream flowed nearby, making a gentle sound that felt out of place. Maya looked around slowly. Something did not belong here. Near the stream, half buried in mud, lay a metal frame. She stepped closer and recognized it as part of a camping stove. Nearby were more items. A torn sleeping bag. A broken flashlight. Everything was scattered across the ground, as if thrown without care. Maya felt a chill run through her. She noticed marks in the dirt. Long lines leading toward the water. They looked like signs of struggle or effort. Someone had been here. Someone had moved through this place in fear or pain. Maya knelt and picked up the flashlight. It was heavy and cold in her hand. She turned it over and saw faint letters scratched into the side. The name was clear enough to read. Lena. Maya stared at the name. This was no longer just an abandoned campsite. This belonged to a real person. Someone who had come here and never taken their things back. A sound behind her made her gasp. Leaves shifted. A branch snapped. Maya stood quickly and turned around. Her heart nearly stopped. Between the trees stood a figure. Someone was there, watching her in silence. Maya stood frozen as the figure remained between the trees. Her mind raced through many thoughts at once. She wanted to run, but her legs would not move. The forest felt smaller now, as if it was closing around her. The figure took a slow step forward. Sunlight touched the person's face through the leaves. It was a woman. She looked tired and thin. Her clothes were old and dirty. Her hair was tied back loosely and strands fell across her face. Maya felt a mix of fear and relief. At least it was not someone hiding in the dark. Still she stayed alert and kept her distance. The woman raised her hands slightly to show she meant no harm. Her voice was low and calm when she spoke. You should not be here. Maya swallowed and forced herself to speak. She asked who the woman was and why she was there. Her voice sounded weak even to her own ears. The woman looked past Maya toward the scattered items near the stream. Her eyes stayed on the ground for a long moment. Then she spoke again. This place should have stayed hidden. Maya took a small step back. She asked if the campsite belonged to her. The woman nodded slowly. She said she had come here years ago with a friend. They wanted to stay away from people and noise. They believed the forest would keep them safe. Maya felt a chill. She asked about the name on the flashlight. The woman closed her eyes when she heard it. When she opened them again, they were filled with sadness. Lena was my friend. The words hung heavy in the air. Maya felt her chest tighten. She asked what happened to her. The woman walked closer to the stream and sat on a fallen log. She seemed tired, as if the weight of memory had worn her down. She told Maya that the weather had changed suddenly that night. Rain had fallen hard and the ground became slippery. They argued about leaving or staying. Lena wanted to leave before dark. The woman wanted to wait until morning. They walked near the edge to look for a safer path. That was when Lena slipped. Maya listened quietly. Her heart beat slow and heavy. The woman said Lena fell down the slope and was badly hurt. She tried to reach her, but the ground kept sliding. By the time she got down, it was already too late. Lena could not move. She was cold and scared. Maya felt tears rise, but she held them back. She asked why the woman never went for help. The woman looked at her hands. She said she panicked. The trail was gone. Her phone had no signal. She tried to carry Lena but could not. Night fell quickly and fear took control. She stayed with Lena until morning. When the sun rose, Lena was quiet and still. The woman said she felt the forest had swallowed her friend. Maya felt sick. She asked why the woman stayed here after that. The woman stood up slowly. She said she could not leave Lena behind. She stayed near the valley for weeks hoping someone would come. No one ever did. Over time she began to believe that this place was all she had left. Maya looked around at the broken items and the marks on the ground. Everything made sense now. This was not just a forgotten campsite. It was a place of loss. Maya said they needed to tell someone. She said Lena deserved to be found and remembered. The woman shook her head. She said it was too late. She said the forest had already decided. Maya felt a spark of anger. She said the forest did not decide what mattered. People did. She said staying silent would not change what happened. The woman looked at Maya closely for the first time. She studied her face as if searching for truth. The forest remained quiet around them. After a long pause, the woman asked Maya if she would leave and forget everything. Maya said she could not. She said she came here by chance, but now she felt responsible. The woman turned toward the trees. She said there was something Maya needed to see before making any choice. She walked deeper into the valley, and Maya followed slowly. They moved along the stream until the woman stopped near a cluster of rocks. She pushed aside leaves and dirt with her hands. Beneath them was a small wooden marker. It was simple and worn. A name was carved into it. Lena. Maya felt tears fall freely now. The woman said she made it herself with a knife she carried. She said it was the only way she knew how to say goodbye. Maya knelt beside the marker. She promised quietly that Lena would not stay hidden anymore. The woman's shoulders trembled. For the first time she cried openly. The sound echoed softly through the trees. Maya placed a hand on her shoulder. She said they could go together. She said the truth might hurt, but it would also bring peace. The woman nodded slowly. She said she had been waiting for someone like Maya. Someone brave enough to look down the slope and care. As they began the climb back up the valley, the forest seemed lighter. The path was still hard, but it no longer felt empty. Maya knew that what waited ahead would change many lives. But she also knew that some stories were meant to be told no matter how long they stayed hidden. The climb back up the slope felt longer than before. Maya moved carefully while the woman followed behind her. The ground was still loose and uneven, but fear no longer guided their steps. Something else did now. It felt like purpose. When they reached the campsite, the light had changed. The sun stood lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the clearing. The torn tent fabric moved softly in the wind. Everything looked the same, yet Maya felt different. She could not see this place as just a forest anymore. It carried a story that had waited too long. The woman sat near the old fire pit and rested her hands on her knees. She looked tired but calmer. Maya offered her some water from her bag. The woman accepted it slowly and drank in small sips. Maya asked what her name was. The woman paused as if she had not spoken it in a long time. Then she said her name was Noor. Saying it out loud made her flinch slightly, as if the sound carried weight. Maya introduced herself again even though Noor already knew. It felt right to do it properly now. Two people standing at the edge of truth. Maya said they needed to leave before it got dark. Noor agreed but asked for a few minutes. She walked to the scattered items and picked them up one by one. The broken cup. The torn sleeping bag. The small bag with the missing strap. She placed them near the fire pit as if organizing memories. Maya watched quietly. She could see how each object mattered. Noor said she kept the campsite untouched because changing it felt like erasing Lena. But now she understood that keeping everything frozen had trapped her too. Noor asked Maya if she believed people could forgive themselves. Maya thought for a moment. She said forgiveness was not easy, but carrying guilt forever was worse. She said facing the truth was the first step. Noor nodded slowly. She said she had replayed that night in her mind for years. Every choice. Every step. She said she wondered how life would look if she had listened to Lena and left early. Maya said everyone makes choices with the knowledge they have at the time. She said regret often comes from knowing more later. Noor looked at her with surprise as if those words had opened a window. As they prepared to leave, Maya noticed something near the edge of the clearing. A small notebook lay half buried under leaves. She picked it up carefully. The pages were worn but dry. She opened it and saw handwriting inside. It was neat and thoughtful. Dates were written at the top of each page. It was a journal. Maya handed it to Noor. Noor froze when she saw it. Her hands shook as she opened the notebook. She recognized the writing instantly. It was Lena's. Noor sat down hard on the ground. Tears filled her eyes as she read. The pages spoke of quiet mornings and shared laughter. Lena wrote about loving the forest and trusting Noor. She wrote about plans for the future and dreams she had not shared out loud. Maya felt like she was standing beside something sacred. She did not read the words herself. She gave Noor space. After a long time, Noor closed the notebook. She pressed it to her chest. She said she had searched for this for years but never thought it would still be here. Maya said the notebook could help tell Lena's story. Noor agreed. She said it was time Lena's voice was heard beyond the trees. They packed what they could carry and stood at the edge of the clearing one last time. Noor looked around slowly. She said goodbye without words. The walk back toward the trail felt different. The forest no longer felt heavy. Birds returned to the branches. The wind felt softer. As they reached higher ground, Noor stopped suddenly. She pointed toward something ahead. A path that Maya had not noticed before. It was faint but real. It led toward the old road. Noor said she had never seen it before. Maya said maybe it was always there, just hidden by fear. They followed the path together. It led them out of the hills sooner than Maya expected. When they finally reached the road, the sky had begun to turn orange. Maya checked her phone again. This time there was a signal. She felt a rush of relief. Noor hesitated. She said she was afraid of what would come next. Of questions and memories and facing people again. Maya said fear was natural. She said Noor would not face it alone. They sat on a rock by the road and waited. Maya called the local office and explained what they had found. She spoke calmly and clearly. She shared the location and the name. When the call ended, Maya looked at Noor. Noor's eyes were filled with worry but also something new. Hope. As they waited, Noor began to talk more. She spoke about her life before the forest and how she drifted away from everyone after that night. She said she stopped believing she deserved a future. Maya listened and said very little. She knew sometimes being heard mattered more than being answered. The sound of a vehicle approached in the distance. Noor stiffened but did not run. Maya placed a hand on her arm. The truth was coming. And with it, a chance to finally let the forest rest. The vehicle stopped near the road and two people stepped out. They spoke gently and asked Maya and Noor to sit down. The evening air felt cool and calm. Maya noticed how Noor's hands trembled slightly, but she stayed where she was. She did not try to hide anymore. Maya explained everything again from the beginning. She talked about the abandoned campsite and the slope and the valley below. She spoke about the items they found and the name on the flashlight. She spoke slowly so nothing was missed. Noor stood quietly beside her. When Maya finished, Noor spoke for herself. Her voice was soft but steady. She told them about Lena and the night in the forest. She did not rush her words. She did not look away. The people listened without interrupting. One of them nodded and wrote things down. The other looked toward the hills with a serious face. They thanked Noor for telling the truth. They said it was not easy but it mattered. As they prepared to go back toward the forest, Noor hesitated. She looked at Maya and asked if she could walk with them again. Maya nodded. She knew this moment was important. They returned to the clearing first. The light was fading but there was still enough to see. The fire pit and torn fabric stood quietly as they had before. This time the place did not feel hidden. It felt seen. They moved carefully down the slope together. Maya stayed close to Noor. The path was slow but steady. When they reached the valley, the sound of the stream filled the air again. Noor led them to the wooden marker. She knelt beside it and touched it gently. The people stood respectfully behind her. No one spoke for a long moment. Maya watched Noor breathe deeply. Her shoulders rose and fell. She looked calmer than before, as if releasing something heavy she had carried for too long. One of the people said Lena would be brought back to her family. They said her name would not be lost anymore. Nor closed her eyes and nodded. Tears fell, but she did not wipe them away. The notebook was shared carefully. The pages were handled with care. The words Lena wrote felt alive even now. Maya could sense how important that small book was. When they finished in the valley, they began the climb back up. The forest felt quiet but gentle. It was no longer holding a secret. As they reached the clearing again, the sky had darkened. Stars began to appear above the trees. A soft light was set near the campsite so everything could be seen clearly. Nor stood near the fire pit and took one last look around. She said she had lived in this place for years in her mind. Now she was ready to leave it behind. The walk back to the road felt lighter. Maya noticed Noor walking taller. Her steps were still slow but no longer heavy. When they reached the road, another vehicle waited. Noor paused again. She turned to Maya and thanked her. She said if Maya had not followed her instincts, none of this would have changed. Maya said she only listened to what felt right. She said sometimes the forest chooses who will hear its silence. Noor smiled faintly at that. It was the first real smile Maya had seen from her. They parted ways there. Noor went with the others. Maya watched until the vehicle disappeared down the road. She felt a deep quiet settle inside her. The walk back to town felt longer than usual. Maya's body was tired, but her mind felt clear. She thought about how one simple walk had turned into something much bigger. When she reached her home, the lights felt warm and comforting. She made tea and sat near the window. Outside, the night was calm. Days passed after that. People spoke quietly in town. News spread slowly. The hills were mentioned again after many years. Maya learned that Lena's family had waited a long time for answers. The truth brought pain but also peace. A place to remember. A place to heal. Maya returned to her normal routine, but she was not the same. She noticed small things more. The sound of wind. The feeling of ground under her feet. One evening, Maya walked back toward the old road but stopped before reaching the forest. She looked toward the hills from a distance. She did not feel fear. She felt respect. The forest had held a story and finally let it go. Maya knew some places carry memories and some people are meant to uncover them. She turned back toward home with a steady heart. One chapter had closed but something else was beginning. The forest was quiet again. Not because it was hiding something, but because it had finally been heard. Weeks passed after the forest revealed its truth. Life in town slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but something had shifted beneath the surface. People spoke more gently to one another. The hills were no longer ignored. They were remembered. Maya kept working and living as before, yet her days felt fuller. She woke earlier. She noticed how light touched walls and how voices carried emotion. The silence inside her felt different now. It was calm instead of empty. One afternoon Maya received a message asking her to visit the local office. She felt a quiet tension but also curiosity. When she arrived, she was welcomed kindly. They thanked her again for coming forward and for helping Noor find the strength to speak. They told Maya that Lena's family had come to town. They wanted to meet the person who found the campsite and helped uncover the truth. Maya hesitated at first. She did not want attention. But she agreed. The meeting was simple and quiet. Lena's sister sat across from Maya with gentle eyes. She said they had never stopped hoping for answers. Not knowing had been the hardest part. She thanked Maya for caring when no one else had known to look. Maya said she only followed a feeling. Lena's sister smiled and said sometimes that is how important things begin. Maya left the meeting feeling lighter. The story no longer belonged to the forest alone. It had found its place among people. A few days later, Maya received another message. This one was from Noor. They met at a small cafe near the edge of town. Noor looked different. Her clothes were clean and her posture steady. Her eyes still carried sadness, but also clarity. They spoke slowly and openly. Noor said she had begun talking with people again. She said telling the truth had been painful, but holding it inside had been worse. She thanked Maya again. She said Maya had given her the courage to face a life she thought she no longer deserved. Maya listened and said Noor had done the hardest part herself. She said walking back into the world takes strength. Before they parted, Noor handed Maya a small folded page. It was copied from Lena's notebook. A short piece of writing that spoke about trusting quiet moments and the kindness of strangers. Maya kept it carefully. As the seasons changed, the hills began to draw attention again. Not for fear, but for reflection. A simple marker was placed near the trail. Nothing dramatic. Just a name and a date. Enough to say someone had been there and mattered. Maya returned to the forest one last time. She walked only to the edge of the trail and stopped. The trees stood tall and still. The air felt open. She did not step inside. She did not need to. Standing there, Maya thought about how one choice can open a hidden path. How listening can change more than speaking. How stories wait for the right moment to surface. She turned back with a sense of peace. Life moved forward. Maya traveled more. She walked often. She paid attention to places others passed without noticing. Sometimes she thought about the slope and the valley and the quiet stream. Not with fear, but with respect. The forest had not been a place of shock alone. It had been a place of truth. And Maya understood something now. Some discoveries are not meant to scare. They are meant to remind people to look closer, to care, to listen. The hills remained quiet after that. Not because they were empty, but because their story had finally been told.